Well, good morning, everybody. This is AKA Heather Joy, and you have boarded the lifeboat. Before I get started, guys, you know, this is for Quiet Girl. I don't have a participation trophy, but I've got medals. This is for Quiet Girl. I know she's not in the chat. She's not here yet, but I know she'll watch this later. And kudos to you, Karen. That was amazing yesterday. Wow. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. That was awesome. Anyway, that's for Karen. Anyway, let me see who is here this morning. We've got Seventh here, Charlie, Valerie, Mind Games, Annette, Dennis N. I don't know if he's in here right now or not. Rick's here. I saw Balake was here. Hope he's still here. And Flamin' Jackson was here earlier. That's awesome. Anyway, good morning to you guys. Hey, will you please sit down? You're interrupting. Sit down. There you go. Good boy. Yeah. You're a good boy. Well, here I am I went to get in the shower this morning. I had no hot water. Nice greasy hair. Yeah, I'll get it fixed. There's this new house. I mean, not new, but new to us. We just moved, and I'm not sure how to. Oops, I'm not sure how to light the pilot again on this. I'm waiting for my husband to get up. Anyway, let's see. Before, all right. Hey, Block A is still here. Awesome. Let's see. I guess I better run through the rules. I'm struggling, guys. I have Mark put together this awesome little intro video to use. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure all this out and get the little video up and get music to it. I'm struggling. So you're gonna have to put up with me doing what I usually do, but we'll get this. I'm getting this figured out. It just takes time. I'm kind of slow with computers and things like this. It takes me a long time, but we'll get there. So first rule we have on the lifeboat. If you are in the live chat or the comment section, please don't discuss politics. It's just a little bit too triggering. The second rule we have, this is not a religious channel. It's fine to say, hey, I'm going to pray for you, or statements like I couldn't have found sobriety without my faith. That's all just fine. But please don't shove your religion down someone else's throat. Let's respect one another's beliefs here. Number 3, please refrain from swearing in the live chat and comment section. As our captain always says, if you can't control your mouth, you can't control your life. So the 4th one, please no trolls. There's just no room on this boat for mean people. We come here to support one another, help one another, and lift one another up. And there's no place for people being mean. Not at all. I will toss you overboard. And also, I have a request, guys. If you haven't hit that like button yet, please exit out of the live chat and go give it a little love tap. Where are you going, bud? I thought it was nice having him sit in my lap, but he's getting older and he's getting kind of fickle. Anyway, if you know anybody that can benefit from these videos, please share them out. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Let's signal to YouTube's algorithm that we are a channel, where people are really engaged. We want YouTube to really push this channel, and those things really do help. And they're not, they're simple. They do take a little time sometimes, but please, please do that for us. That would be awesome. We are growing, and I would love to continue to see us grow. The more we grow, the more people we can reach and help. And yeah. So anyway, also don't forget, there is a link pinned in at the top of the comment section. If you want to join the live stream, if you need some help, if you need to talk, please feel free to use that. Also, oh yes. Oh yeah, you guys, I've got this awesome camera and mic, and I figured out how to record videos with it. I know there's a way. I have a really nice tripod, the whole thing. I know there's a way to hook it to my computer so that I can really sound and look a little bit more professional. I'm struggling, guys, but we're working there. If anybody has experience with this, I also have a really nice video camera and mic for that. I have, good grief, I even have wireless mics and things, but I'm stupid. I don't know how to use these things. My husband used to film hunts. Like the last one, he got to go on his dream hunt to New Zealand, and he got to film the hunts that he went on, and he got to film some of the ceremonies of the tribe that he, well, tribe was it? Yeah, it was a tribe that he was with, the Maori people, and really cool, but he just has no time for that anymore. So he gave me all his equipment, and I'm just struggling to learn how to use all this stuff. But anyway, if there is anybody out there that would be willing to help me, please contact me. I always put my email in the description box, and yeah, I would love some help with this. I'm struggling. But anyway, it's all good. Also, I'm not getting paid for this or anything, but let me see if I can get that. Gosh, the light. There we go. Maybe like this stuff. Yeah, it's called Proliva. I believe I've mentioned this stuff before. For all of you guys that are struggling with uh, inflammation conditions, autoimmune disorders, pain like osteoarthritis, fibromyalgia, things like that. This stuff is amazing. I'm shocked at how well it is working, and it's a grade above uh, like a nutritional supplement. It's like a medical food. It's held to a higher standard. All the things in it are very clean, very effective. It does take 3 weeks for it to start to take effect, but I've been experiencing some significant differences in my pain levels lately. There's some days that are bad, but I mean overall, wow, I'm blown away that this stuff really helps. And any of you that are out there that struggle with chronic pain conditions and inflammation, this stuff might really help you. I think it's worth giving it a try. It's about $30 for a month's supply, which isn't too bad, especially considering the high quality that it is. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I am really shocked that this stuff helps. It really does. Anyway, I'm excited about what I want to talk to you guys about today. I found this awesome article on a website called Glam. That's really nothing I would have looked for, but for some reason it popped up in my Google feed. And it's something that talks about beauty and fashion, but it also goes into wellness and living in relationships. And I found this article about boundaries in there that I was so impressed with. It is so well written, and wow. And boundaries is something that I have spoken about before, but it's something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of you do as well. As people that are recovered or recovering addicts, we struggle with relationships. We struggle with expressing our feelings. We're a little bit messed up, and trying to work all the kinks out of your life, it's a struggle. And boundaries for me is a constant thing I struggle with. And this one is so well written and gives some ideas that I have never thought of before. And I really wanted to share this with you guys. So I'm really hoping that this will help. I remember it must have been 2016, I believe. I had been on a serious amount of antipsychotics at one point, and I had been in and out of psychiatric wards. I mean, I had even spent like 6 months in the state hospital on top of all the other places I'd been. And wow, I was on a buttload of medication, some really heavy stuff. Some of these things cause weight gain. Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't know what it does, but it really does mess up your metabolism, and it causes you to gain weight around your middle. And all of my friends that I know that are taking antipsychotics have the same problem. It collects right around your middle, and that's a very unhealthy place for you to carry fat. But it's the medication. But my mother would give me crap about it all the time. I remember we were sitting in church together, and I always lead the congregation in the music. I had to get up at the end of the meeting to go up and lead the music for the closing hymn. And she whispered to me and she said, "Suck in your gut." And I went, I was so upset because she was always hounding me about it, because I've always been very thin my whole life until that point. And she was always giving me crap about, what I was eating, and, just was on my case about it. And it really hurt. And then, her husband would make comments too. Really, really struggled with that, but I didn't say anything. I just took it, I just took it. And I'll never forget the day. It was in 2016. Yeah, I had gone over. My mother had had surgery on her neck, and she was, having a hard time getting things done. So I went over, cleaned the whole house. I remember vacuuming, and her husband just stood there and watched me. And he watched everything I did, and it was really odd, and it was really crossing some of my boundaries, but I had never said. But it was so uncomfortable, just the way he was staring at me. And when I was finished, he said, "You don't look like you're pregnant anymore." And I just couldn't believe it. What a comment. I still, to this day, it just still stuns me. How dare you say that to me? And, it was just building and building. And then a few weeks later, I went back to my mother's house, and I remember sitting on the couch, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. But her husband made a comment to me that hit me so hard, and it just hit. I was at my limit. I didn't say anything. I remember he was mocking me, and I stood up and I just left. I didn't say a word. I just left. And my mother, I noticed her eyes just went. And for the first time, this is the first time I'd stood up, tried to set a boundary, first time ever with anybody, really. And, I just walked out, and she went after me, which really surprised me too. But that was the start. That was the first time for me that I'd ever, set a boundary and said, "Hey, I am not going to put up with this." And it wasn't worth arguing. I can't really argue with people. I get way too upset. I have to, step away and think about things first. But that was my first time of really setting a boundary, and I've really been working ever since then. But I still struggle with this. So I was, like I said, I'm so impressed with this article, and it is called 11 Boundaries to Set in Your Life in Order to Maintain a Healthy Balance. And really, it's balance is what it's all about, you guys. And, in this article, it talks about how boundaries begin and end with you. That is so true. It's up to you, you know. They are a conscious means. Come here, baby. Hey, what are you doing? I think he found a spider. Anyway, boundaries, it's a conscious means of establishing how you define yourself, and, the way that you interact with other people. So a boundary, sets the limits on what you, on what is you. You know what I mean? It's just not, it sets boundaries on what is you, and it's how you define yourself, and it's also the way that you interact with other people. Um, Sometimes it means that you have to set down a line between what you want in your life and what you don't. Other times it can be a way of honoring your own values, your own beliefs, your own feelings. But at the heart, um, Boundaries define, acceptable behavior in relationship. That's something that we always need. We all struggle with relationships. And we always say, the opposite of addiction is connection. We've got to have relationships to have that connection. Boundaries, setting boundaries, it's a really, really important thing to do to have a balanced, healthy relationship. And this is not about, controlling other people in your life. It's more just creating guidelines for how to maintain your relationship, in a healthy way. Um, for an example here would be, say just a person's making you uncomfortable, whether it's physical or emotional or some other way. A boundary is what helps you assert to the other person, and bring the relationship in back to a place where you both feel safe. It's a balance. um, Boundaries really do help foster a stronger relationship between people. Both parties, when that's established, both parties feel valued and respected. Some people may not realize that within these confines, there's a lot of different boundaries that you may need to evaluate. And what are you doing, honey? What he's doing? Cats. Anyway, um, let's see, where was I? It can be tough to establish lines. At first, it's very uncomfortable if you're not used to doing this. But in the long run, it will really help bring that sense of balance to your life. Um, you know, it's so important. And out of the basic level, boundaries are really just simply rules that you follow and you communicate to other people. Um, like you don't want to allow your feelings to be invalidated by another person. And you enact, you set down that boundary, you put down that line through verbalization. You've got to express this. um, Especially when things make you uncomfortable, and if they continue, you've got to take certain steps to protect yourself. And sometimes it means that you just stop interacting with that person for a time. I have done that many times with my mother. I struggle with her to this day. I love her dearly, but she went through some serious stuff when she was a kid, that's affected her, to this day. And it's really affected our relationship. And I was really in a very codependent relationship with her for a long time. But I have been learning to set boundaries with her. But it's not easy. And it's necessary. You have to establish that. And both her and her husband now treat me with a lot more respect than they used to, because I'd had enough. And there have been several times where I have gone maybe 3 months without talking to either of them. Just, but they're getting it now. They're getting it. I haven't really expressed so much to them, but it's just been more of my actions. Leaving in the middle of a conversation and then just refusing to talk to them, refusing their calls, refusing their texts, refusing to go over there. That was the start for me. But I'm working on the verbal stuff now. Um, and you might say yes to one person and no to another person, depending on your relationship. And boundaries don't, it's not like a one size fits all thing. And you can't have too rigid of a boundary system, because that can be detrimental and close you off from people. And the last thing we need is isolation. That's not what we need. That when we isolate, we're going to end up, going back into relapse. And that's just not a good thing. But if your boundaries are too porous, where you're letting in things that you shouldn't, that's a problem too. And a lot of us find it difficult to say no. And we really do allow people to overstep our boundaries, and that really does violate your boundaries and that person's as well in a way. Um, Healthy boundaries really allow you to communicate your needs and your opinions without compromising your values and your beliefs. And saying no is really okay. It really is. But it's not a rule. Everything can be adapted to the circumstances and to the person. It depends on each person. Um, but where do we begin? First of all, I want to go through all. There's many different boundaries to think about here. The first one is that's listed in this article is financial boundaries. Excuse me, just a second. Okay, now financial or material boundaries. That's an interesting one. I had never really thought about this one too much before. But it's about how you set your limits on interactions that concern either your money or your possessions. What I mean here is, it might be like a financial request, like someone asks to borrow you money, um, or they might, borrow something of yours and damage it, or maybe you share something that you really don't want to share. I hope that makes sense. But a lot I've never had this issue because I've never really had very much, but I have seen people who have been very wealthy, and they really do kind of become the piggy bank for the rest of the family. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be where you're wealthy, but if you are just doing better than someone else, you need to make sure that you keep a boundary and not let other people expect you to help them out if you can't do that. And if you don't want to do that, it's totally fine to say no here. I had never really thought about this boundary before, you know and even if you are in a good financial position, or just like I said, just a better state, you know you might feel obligated to help them through a rough period, but those requests can become very overwhelming. They might put pressure on you. You might even feel like you're being exploited, and that's definitely a sign that you don't have a healthy boundary around money. And this is a really difficult thing when it comes to family and friends. But think about it this way. Sometimes you're actually hurting the relationship by not setting the limits in this area, because that creates an imbalance in the power dynamic in your relationship. And the other person might escalate. They might escalate, give some kind of behavior, because there's never been a consequence before, if you tell them no. But I don't know this. How do I explain this one? Um, if someone reacts poorly to you saying no when they are asking you for a financial request, it's obvious right there. If they overreact, that they didn't really value the relationship in the first place. Do you see what I mean? It can really make a power dynamic problem in your relationship. So that's the first one. The second one here is emotional boundaries. This with this one, um, boundaries, emotional boundaries. It's a way of ensuring that you and say your significant other, that your emotional needs are honored. On the other hand, if we bottle up all our feelings, we know, as addicts, this is not a good idea. That might make us very uncomfortable. And that's more likely in the long run, to have conflict and breakdowns in your communication. If there's one person that feels I don't know, that there's like a certain conversation topic that that's uncomfortable to them. There's a certain topic that's uncomfortable, but the partner keeps bringing it up. There's all these emotions that can build up, and in the result, you're going to end up in an argument. The better response here is just to clearly communicate, your emotional boundary around this issue before it gets out of control. It's also, it's your it's about your ability to set boundaries properly. Um, and in this article, it gives reference to let's see, she's a clinical therapist. Her name's Julia Christina. And I guess she has a YouTube video out where she really demonstrates that our response to emotionally triggering situations is an example of where you need to recognize your own emotional boundaries. Now, remember here that you cannot control the other person, but you can control how you respond here. Okay. So instead of letting, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt take over, it might be time for a topic change, a conversation change, or even taking a break. It's all about honoring your emotional needs, and that's something that we really neglect as addicts. We neglect that. And it may mean that you have to prioritize your feelings over someone else's, but that, you guys, that's not cruel. It is not selfish. It's a way of maintaining a relationship, overall, by ensuring that you can interact with that person, from a place of peace and a place of calm, rather than being angry and full of resentment. The next one is mental health boundaries. Now, mental health boundaries, that's more about the limits that we put on our interactions with others that affect our well-being. That's so important. We've got to look out for ourselves. I talk a lot about self-care, and in a way, I think boundaries is definitely another form of self-care. Now, for the mental health, this might be how much emotional and mental support we can offer another person. It can also concern what responsibilities we take in helping or attending to others over ourselves. That was something that I have struggled with for a very long time. Putting out everybody else's needs over mine, and as a consequence, it definitely takes a lot out of me. This is similar to emotional boundaries, but this is more kind of encompasses recognizing the areas in our life where we might inadvertently be making our mental health worse by not protecting our boundaries. If we really encourage everybody here to have a list of 5 people. If you are struggling, you have somebody that you can call. If you are ever asked to be, hey, would you be on my list of 5, and you're not in a good place at that time, it is perfectly fine to say, no, I am really sorry, I can't do that right now. That's perfectly fine. You're protecting your well-being, and that is so important. That's just an example. There is something called the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, and it's referenced here in this article. And what they're saying about the mental health boundaries, it can be really difficult to support other people when we ourselves, like I was saying, are going through very low periods in our lives. And some people can find it hard to focus on themselves. And also, in times when you are going through depression, if you've got some really poor mental health, your self-esteem can really drop. And, it makes you feel like your needs are inconsequential and less important than the other people around you. Boy, do I understand that too. Boy, I totally understand that. In some ways we can we might even be dependent on the other person. I was in a very codependent relationship with my mother for a long time, and it really did help mask my problems. I was so enmeshed with her, and my self-esteem came from her reactions. It really strange, but um codependence isn't always about enabling behaviors. It's the ways that we overstep our own boundaries in the pursuit of trying to take care of another person. It isn't healthy for us, and it's not healthy for them. It really blurs those lines between our needs and their needs, and it really creates this vicious cycle where neither person is able to function out of the confines of the other one. So oh boy, the mental health boundaries are really, really important. Your well-being is needs to be of the utmost importance. I would think sobriety is definitely part of your well-being. This needs to be the top of your list. You've got to take care of yourself, or you cannot take care of other people, and you need to prioritize yourself. For a lot of us, our self-esteem has been in the toilet for a long time, and we don't feel worthy of setting these kind of boundaries. Like I said, it's something I'm still struggling with, but I'm working on it. um, it's really important, guys. The next type of boundary that is in this article they talk about is energy boundaries. Now, this one, energy boundaries are defined in a few different ways here. And one example they give is they talk about a line that we draw between us and the energy around another person. This includes, whether I don't know, you can sense when somebody's staring at you. You can just feel it. When someone walks in the room, even if you don't see or hear them, you still feel that presence. There's still something, there's like an energy around all of us, and you can feel that. Some people are more sensitive than other people, and I'm extremely sensitive to it. But something, again, this is something I'm working on. I've got to set boundaries here because I take on people's emotions, and it really weighs me down. Um, but again, there's got to be an energy boundary. Um, Another way to describe this is, are you ever around someone, and every time you are with them, when they leave, you feel absolutely drained? I've had to end a couple of friendships because of that, because they were so needy. It was absolutely exhausting to be with them, to talk to them on the phone, I mean, it was wow. And I love this, there's two people I'm thinking of. This is, from a couple of years back now, but I hate this, but I had to end these friendships because I was absolutely exhausted, and I couldn't do it. It was really sucking up my energy. And people that are really sensitive will understand exactly what I'm saying. And our energy really is a very limited resource that, we have to expend it, on so many things, and it is very limited. um, whether it's, your physical or your mental abilities, as far as energy, it's a valuable resource. You need to treat your energy and protect it just like you would your money. Seriously. If you can do that, it's a way to avoid getting burned out. Um, I've been burned out many times in many situations, and, especially when I was a nurse. Wow, definitely. Yeah, there was some serious burnout there, and I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Um, but you need to work things out in your life so that the people around you are not sucking away your energy. It's really important who you surround yourself with, especially when you're trying to get sober. That's a really important one. I know this is kind of an This one's a little bit abstract, but I believe it's just as important. Our energy is very valuable. The next boundaries that are in this article, they talk about setting a spiritual boundary. And it says here that a spiritual boundary is a space that you have, to protect your beliefs. Particularly if they are religious or spiritual in nature. They allow you to live out your life in a way that respects those beliefs or those practices. Okay, this might be going to a place that's very significant to you in your religion, or you're participating in certain rituals, or maybe there's maybe it's an ethnic thing, or but these behaviors, these are very important to you. And it's it I this one I feel very strongly about, just because of my religion and the way that I live. This is a big one, and I never allow people to cross this line here. There are certain practices that I participate in very frequently, and they are very important to me. And this is one I have no problem setting boundaries with. This one means a great deal to me. Nobody is going to prevent me from being able to worship the way that I choose to. Um, and there's a lot that goes into this for people. It might be certain foods that they have to avoid for religious reasons, or maybe a person needs time off work to participate in a particular religious holiday, something like that. These are all examples. But your spiritual life is very, very important to you. It doesn't have to, there's definite difference between spirituality and religion. And you can, if you don't practice a particular religion, you can still be very spiritual. And this is something it needs to be a priority for you. It really adds so much to your life. Um, really, I don't know. It's why I have been able to maintain my sobriety now for over 15 years. Right here, this is why. This is what it comes right down to. It. This is where I get my strength from. This is what keeps me going, and this one means a great deal to me. And nobody is going to prevent me from worshiping the way that I choose to. But whatever your spiritual or religious beliefs are, it's really important that you keep boundaries in place here. Protect these inner spaces inside you. It will help you be more in tune with what you need and what is important to you. I hope that one makes sense. The next one they speak of here is physical boundaries. This one isn't too difficult to understand. The concerns our physical bodies and the way that we limit how people around us, touch us or enter our personal spaces. Even it's also, a level. There's, it's like it's about a level of privacy that you might need too, and it's really important that you communicate these preferences, so that you feel safe and you feel respected. If you're not a huggy, lovey, touchy type of person, there is no problem in telling people, hey, I'm sorry, back off. There's no problem with that. You need to be to always, be feel you need to feel safe. You need to feel comfortable. But you've got to express what your preferences are. I'm a very, very lovey, touchy, feely person. That's just me. But I know there are a lot of people that are not that way. And I used to just to cross people's lines and hug them anyway, even if they didn't want it. And I've learned, I was really crossing the line there. It's the way, one of the ways that I express my love for people. But I've had to learn, that I need to respect them. If people don't want to be touched, you respect that. It's so important that you keep yourself feeling calm, feeling safe. You know, um, But this could be, how a person touches you, what you do or you don't want. If someone tries to kiss you on the cheek or to hold your hand, um, you know, there are cultural or social expectations that people might have, even personal expectations. There's no problem with you expressing, hey, I don't do that. There's no problem with that. But you've got to communicate where your boundaries are. You you know, there's no good in the end if you are sacrificing your own needs to fulfill somebody else's. Um, you've got to have clear boundaries here and not let people trespass that. And likewise, you don't want to cross, like I was just saying, crossing into someone else's comfort zone. Um, a lot of times, people that struggle with setting boundaries, like I used to do, we struggle seeing other people's boundaries, and we cross them. We allow people to cross ours, and we cross theirs as well. But it's really important that you state what your boundaries are here, and it's really important to respect other people's as well. You need to keep a healthy balance. This is an important one. I know there are a lot of you that struggle with this, with when people have been abused. um, this is a tough one. You've got to voice what you are willing to do and what you're not willing to do, as far as being near people, and there's no problem with that. The next one kind of goes right along with physical boundaries. It's sexual boundaries. This is all about what you prefer in the bedroom with your significant other. um, this could concern kind of any sexual interaction that you might have with your partner. And it's also about the level of comfort, and really important to be able to express expectations or guidelines that you want to have with your partner and follow. um, this one requires a lot of self-awareness and exploration, and being very honest with yourself, and being honest about what are your desires, and what's going to make you happy, and what things you do not want to engage in. Their communication in this area is so important. um, you really need to have a conversation with your significant other, so both of you can talk about what is okay and what is not. um, and this can change. Your boundaries can change over time. Your preferences can change. Both parties involved, there can be changes. But you need to be in this area. You need to be very explicit about what you are okay with and what you are not okay with, and that needs to be agreed upon and not crossed. Um, this is sexual boundaries. This is a very intimate thing. And it can be very difficult to have these types of conversations. You can feel very awkward, very uncomfortable, and you might even worry, that if you say something, you're going to damage the relationship some way. But you know what? It's really important to remember that sex is about both of you having enjoyment, and having clear boundaries. Wow, just it's so important. You both need to be comfortable. You both need to be happy. And if you can get to that point, you have that connection becomes very deep. And a really good sex life can have such a positive effect overall in your life. It seriously can. This is a difficult one, but it is very, very important that you talk about it. The next one, ooh, this is an important one too. Time boundaries. Just like with our energy, um, our time is very limited and our time is very valuable. I just I swear time is sped up. I cannot believe how quickly things, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm older. I don't know. But boy, I never have enough time in the day. I never do. And it gets very discouraging and frustrating sometimes because, my time is very limited. Um, yeah, it's very, very important. And boundaries, setting boundaries around your time is a way of recognizing that your time matters just like everybody else's does. And if you have a disordered time boundary, whether you or someone else is always late or unable to schedule their time effectively, this can have a detrimental effect on your relationship with that other person and sometimes with yourself. It's really an issue of respect for other people's time and your own. Um, this is really true for people that always seem to be behind on things, or they experience burnout from their schedules. Burnout can be a sign of boundary neglect, really. This burnout can involve, it can be physical, mental, or emotional. You can be exhausted in all of these ways. And this comes from not exercising control over your time, your resources. Um, Ask yourself, when was the last time that you took a break without feeling the need to extend your time to someone else? And again, this comes down to, saying no. Your time is valuable, and you need to set a boundary there because you will be completely burned out, and people will take advantage of you very often if you allow it. You need to have boundaries here because time is something we never get back. It just keeps moving, and I swear there is never enough. This is a very important one. Um, if you ever feel like life is just running you ragged, it could be really easy to let these time boundaries just fly out the window. Um, this one is really important in protecting yourself from burnout. And this is a really good one for thinking about and practicing self-care. This is an important one, you guys, and I will repeat, it is okay to say no. We only each have so much time in the day to accomplish so many things, you know. So if this, if someone asks you to do something and it's going to take time and you don't have it, it is totally fine to say no. It really is. You know, wow. This one I could say a lot more about this one, but I better not. But yeah, um, time boundaries. That's a very important one. This next one, really, I almost started crying. I thought about this one when I was reading this yesterday. This one is intellectual boundaries. This concerns how and what you believe, what you think, and what you value on an intellectual level. A good example is religion. You can this can involve ideas or really strongly held opinions that take up a very special place in your life. Um, Trying to think of some other examples. A lot of times, there are things that trigger us: politics, painful memories, certain topics that will evoke really strong emotions. And so boundaries around these topics come in the way in which a lot of times it's the way we're brought up and how our parents responded to us. And, when we tried to assert our own beliefs and our own opinions and our own ideas when we were kids, um, a lot of time, I don't know, I'm sure there are a lot of us here where our parents definitely crossed this line. The house I grew up in, there was there was no room for how I felt, what I thought. I was You didn't express your opinions, and you didn't speak up. This was a very tough one for me. And the older I got, the more it seems like my mother tried to control me, even to the point of telling me what I should feel and what I should think. That right there crosses a boundary for me to now that, anybody tries to do that now, and I am so angry. This is one I have struggled with for a very long time. It was so confusing as a kid, trying to figure out where I where my feelings and my beliefs started, and how do I explain this one? I didn't know where my mom's began and end, and where mine were. We were so enmeshed. And sorry, this one hurts when I think about this one, because I was not allowed to set boundaries in this way as a child. I wasn't allowed to express what I was feeling or thinking. My mom, what she said had to go. And it made, that's what drove me to get out of the house after graduation as soon as I possibly could, because I couldn't stand anymore her telling me how I should feel and what I should think. That crosses such a deep boundary. And it's one I will not allow people to cross anymore. And nothing, I don't think there's anything that makes me more angry than when I see this happen, or when someone tries to cross this line with me. This one, wow. I'm sorry. This is an important one. You are allowed to have your own opinion, and you are allowed to feel what you feel. Nobody can tell you that. Nobody's allowed to tell you how you feel. That is just ridiculous. Please do not let people cross this boundary with you. This one I feel is so important, because your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, your ideas, that is you. That is your essence. You are allowed to be you. There is Do not let people cross this one, please. This one I feel so important. This article talks about, exactly the same thing. A child whose ideas are constantly denied, constantly dismissed. As far as, you're that, this really messes you up. Trust me. It really makes it difficult for you to assert these intellectual boundaries. Um, and people, and on the other end, people that were always shielded from different perspectives and different realities, they might be overly sensitive to discussing certain topics. Or they might even believe that their beliefs, their opinions are even superior, and it makes it unable for them to see other viewpoints. I saw this. I remember there was a girl that had been homeschooled, and she had been shielded from everything. She really hadn't had friends. She hadn't had interactions. She didn't know how to read social cues at all. And when she got to the high school age, she would come to high school and take certain classes. And she was in our Spanish class, and our Spanish class ended up taking a trip to Mexico, and she came with. And wow, that was it was a difficult trip, because she thought that her ideas, hello buddy, her ideas and her beliefs were superior. And oh boy, I mean, I don't know, I've seen this in people, and I felt really bad for her in a way. But in the end, I mean, I think all of us were just very, very glad when we got home that we didn't have to deal with her anymore. And the guys on the trip were just teasing her relentlessly. But Oh boy, I know exactly what they're talking about in this article. When people have been shielded, they they aren't able to understand other viewpoints, and that's difficult too. And that can really make things difficult for them in relationships. Um, but we need to have these healthy intellectual boundaries, because it really empowers you, to be able to speak your mind. That is so important. And it's also okay to take leave if there's a conversation going on that really violates you in any way. Feel free to leave. That's not a problem at all. Please realize how important this one is. The next one is verbal boundaries, and this is similar. Verbal boundaries are kind of the types of communication or interaction or language that you use when you are exchanging things with other people. This is very similar to intellectual boundaries. They really protect our ability for us to speak our minds. They're so important. But this one focuses more on how we engage with other people. Um, and how they and how they do with us too. If you're trying to speak and someone speaks over you, oh, that one drives me crazy. That can be a sign of poor verbal boundaries. You really need to respect other people's boundaries and not allow other people to cross yours. That can be difficult. And there are a lot of there's a lot of ways that communication isn't always limited to just what's said. There's a lot, like I was saying. This particular girl had no ability to read nonverbal cues. She'd never been around kids, and she didn't. Yeah, she couldn't read verbal cues, and she was very, very awkward. Um, yeah, it's not limited to always what is just said. There's a lot of nonverbal cues too, and you can tell when someone, if you can read verbal cues, you can tell when someone is uncomfortable with what is being discussed. Um, there in this article, it talks about I'm assuming it's the psychology department at Stanford University, but they talk about the Stanford University emphasizes that not everyone has the same ability to articulate their needs. Um, and there's different relationship dynamics that can make it more difficult for us to speak up. So we need to be cautious about assuming another person's boundaries. Um, you need to have a formal discussion. Um, this might be, I don't know. This is a hard one to explain. Um, okay, if somebody looks uncomfortable, it's worth checking in with them to make sure that they're okay. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's okay, whatever the situation is, whatever's taking place. If you can tell someone else is uncomfortable, it's totally fine to check in with them, and and vice versa too. Um, I don't know. This one's kind of a difficult one to. I'm having a hard time explaining this one. But it is that's something that as addicts we struggle with. It. We have a difficult time articulating what our needs are, and I think that's one that goes back to a lot of self care. Setting boundaries really is an act of self care, and I'm sorry. I'm struggling to figure out how to explain what's in here and put it out so I can make you guys understand. I'm just going to move on. I apologize. I'm struggling with this one. The next one is work boundaries. Um, this in this article, it talks about how the pandemic really changed the way that a lot of people work. And it was a very quick change too. And this really brought up some long-standing issues. So where the divide was, if you were working from home, where was the divide between work and home life? Things got rather enmeshed, I'm afraid, for a lot of people here. And some people couldn't handle this pressure. You know, a lot of people, I understand, actually left their careers because of that. Um, but a lot of people just stayed in the same role that they didn't enjoy anymore because all of the changes that had gone on. Um, Boundary setting can really be a challenge in this area, but it's really, important to have some boundaries here, for your overall well-being, really. Um, especially if you're working from home, you really should have boundaries, about how many, these are the hours, from this point to this point, this is when I will take calls. This is when people can contact me, but, keep that rigid. There's no problem with setting up boundaries. You've got to, if you work from home, you've got to have your own life as well. So I can see how that can happen. Definitely if you're working from home. Let's see, but in the workplace, if you go to work too, it's really important to set healthy limits there as well. If you don't, you're really going to have a lot of increased stress, a lot of pressure, can be put on you if you allow it, and you can get very burned out. Um, and sometimes you have to deal with toxic people at work too, and that can just add, that can just compound to the whole problem. And there are a lot of people that just are overworked. That's a difficult one because we all need to make a living. We all need that, but we also need to take care of our mental health. And this one can be a challenge. Um, it's really important that you have a sense of groundedness in this area. And it's important that you own up to your responsibilities, but it's also okay, to not take on more than you can handle. This is an important one. Okay, so I've just listed 11 different boundaries, that to give you something to think about. But let's talk for a minute about how do you enforce a boundary. That's a scary thing for a lot of people, and it takes a lot of practice. And at first, you feel so guilty for doing it, but it's necessary. I know it's not easy, but think about all these boundaries. Now, your next question here should be, how should I set them, and what mistakes should I watch out for? Now, according to this article, the first step before you even attempt to communicate any boundaries to someone else, you need to reflect on what you need and what you want from a relationship. This is where journaling is a really good place to go here. If you're not sure, start writing. It's going to come out in your writing. I swear by this one. It will come out if you are journaling, seriously. But it's really important that you understand, this is what I need. This is what is important to me. You need to know what is important before you try to verbalize it. So that would be kind of the first step. It's really, that's comes down to understanding yourself. And again, journaling. You learn so much if you are writing every day. Really, if you are pouring out your feelings, your thoughts onto paper. I don't know. There's something about that. Things come out, and you're able to see things more clearly. I swear by this one. But that I learn a lot about myself through writing and through what is coming out from of my brain, through this pen onto this paper. This is an important one. Um, you need to decide, what your beliefs are, what your values are, what spaces are important to you. These are all things you need to think about. Um, and remember too that what you choose, this doesn't have to be permanent. It might, serve you until you reach, if you're progressing, it might serve you for a time, and then you can reevaluate and reset new boundaries. But it's really important that you stick with what feels right at the moment, what is going to help you feel the safest and the most comfortable now. You can always change later. um, and it's really important to don't get tied up in what everybody else thinks. Remember that you cannot control other people. You can only control how you respond to other people. And if you want to maintain a relationship in the long term, communicating your boundaries really is so important to this relationship. Um, and there are times you might need to set that line down several times. You might have to sit down with the person if they don't listen to you, and they continue to do the same thing and they continue to cross that line. It's really important to sit down with them and be explicit, and discuss where you're at in your life and what you need. I mean, that this person needs to hear this. They need to understand that. And if this is a true meaningful relationship, something that's going to benefit you, they're going to understand. They're not going to be upset. They're going to respect that. If they don't respond well, that's a red flag, guys. That really is a red flag. Um, but sometimes it's going to take several times, like reminding a person, "Hey, I will not. Don't do that. I will not put up with that." Sometimes it takes multiple times, and sometimes you have to sit down with that person. That's not fun. That is not easy. Um, but you need to enforce your boundaries. You've got to take care of yourself. If you continue to allow people to overstep your boundaries, how is that going to help you maintain your sobriety? Think about this one. It's boundaries are so important, and they really do strengthen a relationship if it's a good relationship. Yeah. I feel really strongly about this. I'm sorry, I've got so many thoughts going through my head. um, just keep in mind that when you enforce that boundary, you're not infringing on somebody else's. But once you set it, do not let people cross it. You need to uphold your boundaries with integrity. Really, don't let people cross it. This will signal to people that you are serious, that you respect yourself. If you respect yourself, people are much more likely to respect you seriously. It This is important. And oh my goodness, I really went over time. I apologize, guys. I wasn't paying it. I'm so sorry. I wasn't paying attention. Good grief. Wow. I really went over, guys. I apologize. I want to see who has popped in since then. Kathy. I know I've gone over time. But this is important. She says, I feel like we don't set up good boundaries. We end up angry at the person. We ruminate badly. Then sometimes people self-medicate to calm down the rumination. Exactly. Yes. Oh, and Fee. Hello, Lady Fiona. I'm so glad you are here. Awesome. Seagull Rock Squat came in. Kathy came in. Oh, look, looks like Tommy popped in. Awesome. Tim was here. Who else did I miss? Oh, Teresa G. Ellard. Welcome. I'm so glad you are here. Cheryl, John Doe. Who else? If I have missed you, I apologize. Will, welcome. That's a new one too. This is awesome to see all these new people. John Doe is here. My goodness. This is so awesome to see all you guys. I apologize for going over. Wow, I wasn't paying attention, but I just feel really strongly about boundaries. They are so important. We need to set these. We need to have healthy relationships. We do, that connection, opposite addiction, connection. We need that. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. It's so good to see you all. I wish I could see you in person, but you guys have a great day. Just remember, you can do this. You can handle this. If I can get sober and maintain it, you can. Seriously, you can do this. You got this. You guys have a great day. I love you.